Hello and welcome back to World 360. Today, we shift focus to a region that we talked about in the very first episode of this series, Central Asia. Back then, it was in the context of the Afghanistan crisis. However, today, we look at Central Asia in relation to the Ukraine war. Specifically, we're looking at the former Soviet republics of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. As you can see, this region is boxed in by countries sanctioned by the West. Afghanistan post the Taliban takeover, Iran in relation to its nuclear program, Russia due to its aggression in Ukraine, and China too, for a host of reasons. There's also instability in Xinjiang, a province in China that borders this region where ethnic Uyghurs are allegedly forced into mass internment camps. Now, Central Asian countries are still reeling from the crisis in Afghanistan and continuing to take in refugees from the war-torn country. But the war in Ukraine has certainly put them on higher alert. More so, the war in Ukraine has highlighted how these countries are heavily dependent on Moscow, both in terms of security cooperation and economically. First off, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan are home to Russian military bases. But if we look at security cooperation, there are in fact three Central Asian countries, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, who stand out the most. These three are members of the Russia-centric Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO, a mutual defense pact formed in 1992 after the Soviet Union dissolved. Uzbekistan had quit the alliance in 2012. Now, Western analysts have mainly dismissed the CSTO as an attempt to mimic NATO. The military alliance has in the past ignored certain conflicts such as the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan in July 2020. At the time, CSTO had argued that the fighting was taking place in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is officially recognized as Azerbaijan's territory, which didn't exactly sit well with CSTO member Armenia. But in January this year, Kazakhstan called upon the CSTO for military aid against what it called terrorist groups. But what's important to remember is that the CSTO is a Russia-led alliance and it relies on Moscow's military capacity to project power. But even if we consider CSTO and other various military alliances in the region, it's not as though Central Asian countries are ready to send in their troops into Ukraine to fight alongside Russia. In fact, states like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan may have expressed solidarity with Russia, but none have yet offered or agreed to send in their troops. Meanwhile, Turkmenistan and Tajikistan have maintained a rather neutral stance on the issue. Umida Hashimova, an analyst at US-based Center for Naval Analyses, has pointed out that the war in Ukraine came out of the blue for Central Asian countries, who are now frantically trying to evacuate their own people from the war-torn country. According to rough estimates, Ukraine is home to 4,000 Tajik citizens, 4,300 Uzbek citizens, 1,357 citizens from Kyrgyzstan, and 528 from Kazakhstan. Turkmenistan was the only country that officially did not announce any evacuation assistance. So it's safe to say that these countries aren't yet ready to take a hard stance on Moscow, at least not while their own citizens are still trapped in war-torn Ukraine. Before we conclude, it's worth talking about how the war in Ukraine threatens to economically destabilize Central Asia. More so, how these economies are heavily dependent on Moscow. For Central Asia, Russia is a top trading partner and the source of remittances. Now there are fears that remittances in these countries will fall just as badly as they did in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. Let's look at what's happening right now. Since Russian President Vladimir Putin launched his military operation in Ukraine in late February, the ruble has collapsed by 50%. A report in Eurasia Net explains how this has had ripples on specific countries in Central Asia. For example, the fall of the ruble has dramatically hurt Tajikistan, in which remittances are a critical source of foreign currency. There are also unique problems for Kyrgyzstan, which imports a lot of fuel from Russia that is paid for in dollars. Then you have countries like Uzbekistan, which have millions of migrant workers earning rubles in Russia that have just taken a 50% wage cut. Thank you for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for The Print. Do subscribe to ThePrint.in and follow us on social media.